podcast lovers and lovers of the podcast. This is Jeff LaPlace and Arnold Martinez coming to you with episode number 10 of Spiritual Defense. Arnold, how are you on this fine, sunshiny day?
You know, Jeff, I'm good because I'm alive, but let's get into it.
Oh, wow,
let me
okay,
tell you,
we're getting into
Let me tell you, man, all week, you know, and we've talked about this already, we were talking about it right now, but all week I have been feeling stressed up, and to tell you the truth, man, I don't want to be here today, you know? Like, I just feel like, that feeling of anxiety and not wanting to do things is, like, really, really hard on me this week. You know, I have to fight it to be here.
Yeah.
But I'm glad I'm here, but that's kind of what I just want to talk about, because I know I'm not the only one who goes through this.
So you want to talk about fear, anxiety,
Depression.
and that?
Because that's what led me to look for God.
Right.
That's what drove me into your church building.
Right.
Our church building.
I was about to say it's not my church.
Our church building.
There you go.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, let me get a couple of obvious things out of the way then. First of all, again, you've been walking with the Lord for almost a year. Okay. So you're having this feeling. You're having these feelings, and again, they're not fun. Okay. Now, do you feel like God's abandoned you? Like, do you feel like?
No.
Do you feel like somebody's not meeting their end of the relationship since I've been baptized and saved?
But by someone, could it be me?
Okay, but do you put the blame on God?
No.
Okay.
No, I don't.
Okay, well that's important. And again, I'm not and for those of you who are listening, I'm not trying to browbeat poor Arnold, but the thing about it is like that's the temptation. We're in a spiritual warfare. That's why we call this podcast Spiritual Defense. That's why we call the Facebook page Spiritual Defense. This is like the topic that's like near and dear to my heart. Is just walking this life and realizing the spiritual warfare that's still going on around us, because way too many people are walking in this earth not realizing that spiritual warfare is still going on. And so anxiety, depression, and all that stuff, classical psychologists will talk about, well, you're feeling this way because of X, you're feeling this way because of X. It's like, no, it's a temptation. If you're the devil, what does the devil want of you?
He wants to take you away from God.
Okay. And if he can, okay. And so if he can't take you away from God, but he knows that you've already been saved, what interest does he have in you?
Oh, he wants to distract you to keep you from getting closer and doing God's work.
Right. Do you view your life as a living sacrifice to God?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you view the things that you do in any given day as means in which you can benefit the kingdom of God?
Yeah.
Okay, so if the devil can tempt you to feel anxious or depressed or sad, what's that going to lead you to do?
Give up my mission.
Right, and there's the target. The thing about the devil is that the devil doesn't play fair, and there's no cheap punch that he won't pull.
Yeah.
And he takes no days off.
Yeah.
And he doesn't leave you alone. Okay. So, again, we feel you, and again, I've struggled with this stuff. And again, if anything, that COVID, that 2020 into 2021 into going into 2022 has taught us is that, and this was happening before COVID, is that anxiety, depression, sadness, loneliness, all those things are like up. And that was before COVID. And then after COVID hit, it just started going up faster.
Yeah.
Because guess what? We're social creatures, and it wasn't good for everybody to just separate. And social media and doing things online is not a replacement for being in person with other people. And so that's one side. But it's also good. I wanted to commend you because you just said you don't want to be here. You didn't feel like being here. But guess where you are?
I'm here.
Exactly. and that's the victory.
Yeah.
It's like working out. It's like doing anything of any benefit. There's going to be days that you don't want to be here. There's going to be days that you don't want to fight. There are some times that I'm scheduled to teach a class or speak or worship God or do something along those lines that I'm tempted to think I just want to take the day off. I don't want to do it. I don't want to deal with it today. But the victory is going. Because you go and you show up, and then I've seen this in myself, and I've seen it in other people who have told me similar things like you. They'll say things like, I really don't want to be here this morning, but now that I got here, and now that it's over, I'm glad I came. It's always interesting to me when people say stuff like that, because I'm thinking to myself, okay, like if this was a Sunday morning situation, what did we talk about this day, or what was the songs that were sung, or what did the prayers sound like that might have hit something that somebody's going through and they were tempted to stay away. Does that make sense?
Kind of. Just repeat it again.
Repeat it again. Oh dear. Okay. It's like, for example, I'll preach a lesson on marriage.
Okay.
And when I do, I know because of what I do for a living, I'll have an idea of who's having some marital issues and versus who's not, or things like this, or I don't try to aim a sermon at somebody, like a single person individually. I do more broad type stuff, but I know enough about the people in the congregation to kind of know, it's like, okay, someone might really benefit this. Sometimes these things might hit somebody more than somebody else, and so I kind of look out the audience and I say, okay, who's here, who's not, who's watching online, who's getting to hear it, who's not. And it's interesting how I'll do something, and this happened more than once. I'll do something that I know from experience or from firsthand knowledge that this could really benefit somebody, and they'll come to me afterwards if they came, and they'll say, I really needed to hear that today, and then that's usually followed with some sort of, you have no idea how much I just wanted to stay home today. So it's like that. Who's forcing you to want to stay home? Who's trying to keep you away? Why isn't it interesting? Is like today's the day that you're tempted to stay away. It's like what we're doing here today, and we talk about anxiety, depression, sadness, and all this, and it's like, what does that do? The person who goes through these things are tempted to stay away. They're tempted to remove themselves from the playing field, so to speak, and let life happen without them while they're over here. But the way that we can view it from the spiritual defense, the spiritual warfare point of view, is those times in which we feel like, I can't do it today, I can't speak it today, I can't be it today. That's going to be the day where we need to do it more, because we might be coming into interaction with somebody who really needs what it is we're doing for the Lord this day.
Yeah, I get that. You never know how you can be of use to the kingdom. Sometimes you just gotta get out of bed and do it. Like, I feel this sometimes, in jiu-jitsu, right? Waking up and I'm tired from the day before, and I'm just like, I don't want to go. And everyone feels this too, people who I know who train. They're like, you don't go, and then 15 minutes past the hour when you would have been there, you wish you would have gone, like, already. It's just that feeling, like, same thing with church. I can be like, oh, I don't want to go today, or I didn't feel like going or I thought I wasn't feeling well, and then turns out I'm feeling a little well, and oh, I'm already late, 30 minutes, man, I should have gone. I know more often than not, like, I know the devil's a liar. I know he likes to get into my head, not just my head, all of our heads, and I know even the strongest Christian will have these thoughts, at some point or another, like, and I just felt like it hit me hard. I don't know, like, my world's crashing down, everything's about me. No, but like, I felt like it hit me hard this week, like things are coming up, bills to pay, I'm going to this competition, we're going to a lectureship, I'm doing the youth ministry over at our congregation. I'm just like, all these things are. I'm being called to do a bunch of things, and I feel like Moses. Why me? I'm not that good. I can't.
Well, it's not about me.
Right.
And the thing about okay, first of all, you do know you have the right to say no, right?
Yeah.
Do
Okay.
you have the ability to say no?
Do I personally have the ability to say
Yes.
I'm not sure.
Say no to me right now.
No. Yeah, you know what? I say no when you tell me to use my pockets.
Yeah, I know
There
you
you go.
do. Yeah.
Yeah, so
yes.
you know all the time.
Arnold hates pockets, right? Arnold hates pockets. So what does he do? We have a Wednesday evening Bible study, and we're recording this on a Thursday. So this happened last night, and so I'm home. I got home with the family, and it's when we hung around and talked for a while. So we got home about 9:30 or so. We're home. My daughter's doing homework. Ethan's hanging out. My wife's going to bed, and I've already changed clothes into some night clothes and chilling in my robe and watching the ending of a movie that I missed the previous night because I was talking to Arnold on the phone. And
so I'm just ruining all your nights, huh?
I told Sherry it's not it's like I don't get to watch the ending of Black Widow, so it's whatever and that's like my wife's life story and but no, it was okay. So Arnold calls me up and he says, can you come up to the church building and let me in? I think I left my phone in there. Which again, it's no problem. I was going because I forgot you had a key.
Yeah,
I forgot.
I have a key. My code for the alarm was in my phone.
Yeah.
But luckily enough, I had my laptop and it's synced to my
Right.
phone, so I was able to text you,
Yeah.
and I was able to look up the code, and I was just But
Yeah.
the moral of the story is, I did not use my pockets.
The moral of the story is he refuses to put his phone in his pockets, and I'm like, dude, use your pockets, and he just texts back, no, never,
Never.
And it's like, dude, pockets aren't that bad. Pockets are wonderful. I love pockets. There's even a part in the Black Widow movie that I was watching yesterday. She, Black Widow's sister wears a vest. She likes it because it has lots of pockets, and so pockets are our friends. But anyway, segue. It's really interesting. I mean, this is the thing: is living with God produces joy. Joy is a fruit of the Spirit. There's a difference between joy and happiness. Joy is not happiness. Arnold, what is the difference between joy and happiness?
Happiness is fleeting.
Yes.
I can be happy today, because maybe I turned in and I got an A on an assignment or something. But that doesn't bring me joy, because what if, I don't know, or jujitsu makes me happy, but what if my body doesn't allow me to do jujitsu anymore? Then, it'd be, like, that thing that made me happy is gone. So what I need more is a joy, a sense of fulfillment without these physical things, which God gives me, right? And following Christ gives me, and spending time with the church and the people of Christ gives me, which is that joy that really can't be taken away.
Right. Yeah. So again, do the things in your life give you joy? And again, you have the right to say no. That's how we got onto the pocket story.
Mm-hmm.
You have the right to say no, because something else, I forget who said it. I didn't come up with this. Someone else did. And that is, if the devil can't make you bad, he'll make you busy. Right?
Yeah.
And the idea behind that is that the devil knows that some people are just not going to turn away from God. And he sits back and he says, okay, so since I can't get him to turn evil or to do wicked things, I'll just bombard him with a whole bunch of stuff that you feel like you have to do. It's not even things that are necessarily evil, but everything we do in life takes up time. And so if I can make him so busy that he can't do what is right, then he's still not doing what he's supposed to be doing. That can still bring feelings of inadequacy, which can lead to feelings of depression, feelings of anxiety, and da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da. So again, the question is, do you have the ability to say no?
No, I think for the most part I do. I think that the reason I'm doing stuff is because I truly did want to do it. Right? Like, next week we're going to the lectureship, and not that I was approached to it. It was kind of like a surprise, like, hey, we're going. And obviously I said, no, I don't want to go. But I'm interested and I'm intrigued, and like, I do want to go, and it does take a week from my life, quote unquote.
Right.
Whatever I'm doing, which is really nothing, which is really just reading or, working out or just going to church normally or doing my day-to-day thing.
Right.
And it just takes me out of that comfort zone. You know, so sometimes it's not that I'm saying yes because I feel obligated. Sometimes I know that saying yes will help, even if I feel uncomfortable saying it. Kind of like the idea of that, I don't know, that movie Yes Man with Jim Carrey.
I've always wanted to see that, and I never have.
It's a funny movie.
Well,
You
I want
know,
to read the book.
obviously
You
don't
read the
say
book.
yes to everything,
Right.
But the idea is like, yeah, getting out of your comfort zone and being more accepting towards these situations that you normally wouldn't have considered. Like, for example, now that I'm a Christian, a year ago you tell me I'm going to teach the the youth class on Sundays, like, I probably would have said no. But now I'm just like, okay, sure, let's go for it.
Well, it's like, Jesus and the disciples. I mean, Jesus finds the disciples at the beginning of the Gospels, or close to the beginning of the Gospels, and then within a year and a half, he's sending them off two by two to preach and work miracles. It's not that long. I mean, but that's the thing, It's again, it goes back to that attitude. Carl and I were talking to you the other day. Again, that professionalism at the pulpit. You're not able to teach in a church unless you've had X amount of training. It's like, that's not really biblical. That's not really a biblical idea. It's more along the lines of you got some training. Okay, let's do this work. It's like, look, put it into the terms of jiu-jitsu, for example. How long were you training in jiu-jitsu before you were on the mat?
I mean,
Like, how many classes did you go to before you like went up against somebody?
we went up the first day. The first day you go in, you spar.
Don't you think that's weird?
I mean,
Don't you think that's too soon?
No, I
What
guess
do you
not.
What do you know?
Nothing, but you gotta
Oh.
you gotta learn how to fight,
Okay,
and there's
I
only one
mean-
way to learn, and that's to throw yourself in.
You also talked about Moses, and again, Moses is a great example because for a couple of reasons. One reason is life for Moses didn't start until he was 80 years old. That's when he's called to go on the great adventure of his life. He tried to do it at 40, but the people rejected him, and so he had to run off to the land of Midian because he killed a guy. And so once he was in Midian, he got married, he had kids, life continued on. 40 years he worked as a shepherd, and again he's 80, so like looking to grab that rocking chair and sit on the porch, retire, and live out the last days of his life. I mean,
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do.
Yeah, that's what he wanted to do, and
I like
that's when God calls him.
Yeah.
And Moses did not want to go, and that's so important to remember. He didn't want to go,
Yeah.
and he tried to get out of it with 5 excuses. Used 5 excuses to try to get out of going on this mission that was being presented to him by a burning bush.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, okay. I mean, for example,
Yeah, like the biggest one that I remember is obviously, I don't talk very well. Get my brother to do it. He talks better than me.
Yeah, I'm slow of speech.
Yeah.
And God was the one. It was God's idea to bring Aaron, because he starts with it's first is, well, who am I?
Mm-hmm.
Then it's, who are you? And then it's well, what if they don't believe me? And then it's, well, I'm slow of speech.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last one's finally the truth. I really just don't want to go. Just, can you please just find somebody else to do it? So, and so those are ways, you can read about that in Exodus, starting in Exodus 3 and moving on for a chapter or 2. And, but again, those were the 5 excuses that Moses tried to use in order to get out of it. It's like, well, who am I? Who am I to do? Well, who are any of us?
Yeah.
Really? I mean, the feelings of inadequacy are huge. It's very easy to feel small. That's how come more people aren't as successful as what we could be, because quite frankly, we think we can. I can't have a successful ministry. Look at me. What am I going to be? Other people have been doing it longer, better. What am I going to present to the table? I can't do a podcast. I can't write a book. I can't do a successful sermon series. I can't bring people to the Lord. It's like, why? Then why are you here, and why are you relying on your own power? I mean, it's the feelings of anxiety cripple people.
Yeah.
Just because before you do something outwardly, you first have to fight the battle up here in your head. Because the devil, and everybody else concerned is going to try to tell you that you can't, for no other reason than you're you, and you you might never have done anything like this before. It's very scary thing stepping out of the boat like Peter did to walk on the water with Jesus. Even though he sunk later, he still got out of that boat. And and again, how do we get out of that boat? By remembering it's not about us. It's about giving glory to God. Because before Moses was Moses, he was a shepherd, and so feelings of inadequacy. Who am I? Who are you? Talking about God. Well, who are you? By that point, Israel's been in captivity for 430 years. It's like, who should I say is sending me? And he tells them, I am that I am. It's not that I was or I will be. I am. So remember who has your back.
Yeah, and I remember, I'm up in prayer. I am getting better at fighting that negative voice, and it's always it's easier to say like God's got my back, I'm loved, I can do this, and these that's how that's how I'm here, right? That's how I'm here today. That's how I show up. I was late yesterday to our Bible study. I was having, for an example, I'm having a great day, right? I did a Bible study with someone else. We played a game. We won the game, and I go home and I'm just anxiety attack, panic attack, straight panic attack after I ate or whatever. Maybe it was the caffeine. I don't know. That's the thing, is maybe it was caffeine, but I just normally the way I would deal with these panic attacks, when people aren't home, I would just kind of squat down in whatever area I'm at. Like if I'm sitting in the kitchen, I'll just squat down and hug my legs and just sit there and wait for it to blow over.
Right.
Or I'll go lay face down on my bed and hold tight to my chest and just wait for it to blow over. And sometimes I just go to sleep. Right. So that was happening yesterday. I was on my bed having this anxiety, my heart was racing. I was trying to breathe through it, just trying to fight whatever voice was in my head. I was drifting off, and then all of a sudden I was oh, it's 7 o'clock, I gotta go. So I got up and I left, but it's not to say that it stops me, but it happens. It still happens, and even with my walk with Christ, and I'm doing, I'm doing great things for God at this point, and I'm happy to do them. But that doesn't mean that the anxiety just stops. It happens. It happens pretty. With me, I was diagnosed with anxiety and depression. When I was 19, 20. I just felt ever since I've been just fighting that battle, and I was fighting a losing battle up until I converted, up until I put on Christ.
Yeah.
And that's what it felt like.
Well, again, people think there's one thing that happens. Life happens, and then they respond to it, and then one has to follow the other. But that's actually not the way it has to be. Stuff happens, but then the reaction to it is actually a separate exercise. And again, think about it from what the devil does. The devil just throws stuff against the wall, stimulus against the wall, to see if he can get a response from us. And then whatever that response is from us, that's what's going to be attacked, and then he'll go ahead with it. And so, even though you walk with the Lord, he's still going to try. Because just because people put on Christ doesn't mean the devil leaves them alone. The devil is going to try to tear them away. This is how come I tell people who are about to be baptized, you're about to be baptized. Just know that the devil's going to try to do everything he can to make you think that what you're doing today is a huge mistake, the biggest mistake of your life. And so, because sometimes the reason why I started telling people this is because I've experienced, and I've heard other people experience the same thing.
And
it's
I've heard that voice in my head
people,
for sure.
Yeah, they lead people to salvation, and then they're saved, and then they come back and they say, all this bad stuff's happening to me. Why is this so? And it's almost like they've been they have this feeling of being lied to almost, or just I thought my life was supposed to be getting better, not worse. And it's no, this is the devil just trying.
Yeah.
So life is going to happen, like John Lennon said. I use this in a Bible study today. It's I know people are going to say, he likes John Lennon. No, I don't. I'm not a fanboy, but if somebody says something wise, I use it, right? And I love this quote. I've loved this quote ever since I saw it when I was a kid. Is, life happens while we're busy making other plans. It's from the Beatles song "Beautiful Boy," and that's it. I mean, even though we're saved and even though we're walking this earth, as God's child, the devil is going to try to throw life at us. But the question is not what is your knee-jerk reaction to it, because a reflex is a reflex.
Yeah.
But what are you going to dwell on?
Yeah.
It's like Moses again. You go to his third excuse. What if they don't believe me? They being the people of Israel. Guy shows up. A voice from a burning bush told me to come and save you. Yeah, right. I mean, it's like, this is the feeling of inadequacy. This is the feeling of anxiety. What if I go and deliver this message and not a soul believes me?
Yeah.
What do I do? And God gave him a couple of signs to perform, and then later he'll do the 10 plagues. But the thing is like that was Moses' reaction, was that I'm going to go, I'm going to do this if I do this. But if they don't believe me, it's going to tear me up. I mean, it's the same stuff that people go through today. And this is why, reading the Bible, studying the Bible can be so liberating, because it takes a very prideful person, because, just because somebody has some pride doesn't mean that they're happy about it. Pride just thinks you're the center of the universe. That's all pride is. It doesn't mean that you're the most awesome person in the universe, just that you're the center of it. And so there's tons of people in the world that just have this belief that what they go through, they're like the only person on the planet who's going through it. Or that they're the only person who has ever been that is going through it. We have 7.7 billion people in the world. Do we really think that our sins and our temptations are that unique? But here's Moses, who goes on to become a lawgiver and one of the pillars of Judaism that the Jews just love and adore. And he's worried about what the people are going to think about him delivering this message from God.
And I'm on this walk with Christ, and I'm having this confidence, and I'm telling people about the Word, and I'm doing my best to minister, and not that like I'm inviting death, into my life, but like I tell, I often preach what the Bible preaches, like don't be afraid of death, like we have a healthy fear of God, right? So I'm living my life with confidence. I'm living my life like knowing that like is when I do God's work, whether it's if I drop dead now, I'll be going home. But with that being said, I'm a young guy. It's very easy for me to say that now, huh?
Relatively.
It's easy for me to say that now, and then, I get the sniffles, and all of a sudden the thought comes, and the devil comes in. It's like, oh yeah? Oh yeah, you're so confident? Like, what if you got sick now? What if this sickness didn't stop? What if this sickness put you into bed? What if this sickness killed you? What if you're looking at death tomorrow? And then, all of a sudden, like, I get a panic attack, like, oh snap. Like, I have to face eternity. And obviously facing eternity with Christ and with God as a friend is amazing. But like the devil, I think, obviously wants to throw that, that thought and be like, all right, like I'm gonna scare you then. Like I'm gonna make it so you think you're gonna die, and how are you gonna handle yourself? And it's just like, yeah, like I can say I have confidence. I can say like, Jesus is my friend, and that I look forward one day to seeing God. But but in all reality, I definitely don't want that day to be today, or tomorrow, or the next day. And it's just like, but what if I go down the line and I'm still thinking that? What if I'm like 80 and I'm still thinking that?
Well, what if you go to this jiu-jitsu competition and someone gets a little too vigorous with the triangle choke?
Yeah, and I pass out. And
something snaps.
Yeah.
There you are. I mean, stuff happens.
Stuff happens.
In other words, we can bog ourselves down with everything that we think is going to happen.
Yeah.
I have again this lectureship we're going to. I'm excited about it. I'm getting more excited about it. Sherry, my wife was telling me, it's like, you don't look like you're that thrilled about going. See what the devil's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And it's like, well, and I told her, I confess, lately my road trips haven't been smooth.
Yeah.
So it's like the idea of, do I really want to get into another car and try to drive across Texas again?
Yeah.
With everything that's kind of happened with us, with vehicles and whatnot. But you see, it's fear leads to doubt, leads to feeling of inadequacy, which leads to feeling of inaction, leads to nothing happening.
Yeah.
Now it's interesting. You're feeling attacked on this front. I was feeling attacked on this front. Something wonderful could really happen at this lectureship that the devil's trying so hard in order to keep us away from it.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Again, that's the way that you twist that thinking. It's like when and this is something that I've started trying to do in my own life, because again, I've walked these roads. I know how debilitating they can really be, and I mean, yeah, it's a feeling of impotence. If we can say that on the radio, it's just a feeling of you know what I mean. It's a feeling like someone has reached into your soul and sucked out all your strength, motivation, and positive emotion.
Yeah.
And it's just like you just feel like just a lump. You feel like a spineless lump who's incapable of doing anything, and nothing you really do matters. And it's a very dark feeling. And again, you feel like that you can accomplish nothing. But again, so how do you get out of that? Again, you remember, it's not about us. It's not our job to win. It's our job to go.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. We're seed scatterers, we're seed waterers, but it's God who gives the increase. And so we got to be willing to still get out there and just let the chips fall where they may. Whatever happens, happens. We take things as they happen. We adjust where necessary and where we keep going. Now again, going back to Moses, excuse number 4. I can't talk. I'm slow of speech. I always have been. Well, come on, you were raised in Pharaoh's household. Like you didn't get an ancient world classical education. But again, what is that? What was he doing? What is this excuse? I'm slow of speech. I can't go.
An excuse is what it is. Like that doubt.
Yeah.
Like this inadequacy.
Yeah. It's an inadequacy to get him to stop. And now who perceives our inadequacies?
Perceives.
Who notices our inadequacies first?
Oh, the devil.
The devil, and then who?
Me?
You. In other words, who thinks they have an inadequacy?
Me.
Right.
Right.
Sometimes I don't think I communicate that well.
Mm-hmm.
I don't communicate well at all. Sometimes I believe that.
Okay.
Now, if I say that to you, what's your reaction to that? When I say this to you, that I don't communicate well.
I think every time you preach, you do a very good job of communicating. But I understand that that you have that feeling. Because we all have that feeling.
Right.
And that there's times. Even now, like there's times like I feel like sometimes I'm decent at communicating, but like sometimes I just feel like I say the wrong thing and I don't know what I'm doing.
Right. Well, it's like you should ask Sherry, because there used to be a time when I first started preaching. Right. So like I was still in school and going out and doing and preaching like at these small congregations that couldn't afford their own preacher.
Mm-hmm.
So what they did was they contacted the preaching school I went to, and basically the school would send out students every weekend. It was a way to give us experience, and it helped them out. And so when I would go, Sherry would go with me, obviously, and no joke, for like the next 3 hours. Yeah, but was it okay?
Right.
Are you sure it was okay? Did I do all right?
Yeah.
What do you mean I did fine? What does that mean? And just that whole thing. What is that? It was inadequacy.
Yeah.
It was a feeling of inadequacy, and again, inadequacy can stop you. And then where does the inadequacy lead to? And that leads to excuse number 5.
I don't
just send someone else. Just
Not
send
me.
someone.
Anyone
Everybody
but me.
would be a whole lot better off if someone else would just go.
Yeah.
That's so self-defeating and stupid.
Yeah.
But nobody else got called to that mission. That was Moses' mission that he was being called to. Just like there are things in my life that I do need to do, and that it's okay to say I'm good at various aspects of what I do. There used to be a time I couldn't say that. I didn't want to say it because I didn't want to walk the roads of pride. and avoiding and wanting to avoid pride so much, my humility that I thought I was maintaining was becoming humiliation. Instead of trying to keep a mindful view of what I need to be doing, it became instead, well, I'm just not good at anything.
Yeah.
And so so again, I was crippled by doubt for various periods of time.
I remember you said young Jeff would hide behind his paper.
That's right. Young preacher Jeff would try to hide behind his paper standing in a podium, and I'm 6'3". It doesn't work quite that well. But I mean that's where that stuff comes from. It's like, why am I here? Somebody else more qualified, better talented could be doing what I'm doing. But the thing is because I was called.
Yeah.
It was something that I was called to do.
It doesn't matter if you're quote unquote qualified.
Yeah, the qualification will come.
Yeah.
Again, go back to jiu-jitsu. You don't start off as a black belt.
No.
You start off as a white belt.
Yeah. And it's the journey that matters. It's not how good you are at the beginning.
That's right.
It's how you grow and learn along the way.
That's right. And again, and it's one of those things that it's an easy temptation for the devil. I mean, the devil doesn't have to be a genius to tempt people, because we give him everything that we need. And again, these feelings of failure, these feelings of anxiety and inadequacy, and based on what we go through in life, we go through this stuff. The Apostle Paul went through it. We finished a study on the book of Acts last night at North Mission, and if you read like Paul's missionary journey, there were times in which Paul had it very hard to go. He would be chased out of towns, and he would be stoned in the street like a dog, and he'd be thrown into prisons, and he'd be shipwrecked, and if you actually read like 1 Corinthians chapter 2 and verse 1 and following, I mean, he wrote this to the church. He says, "And I, when I came to you, brothers, did not come proclaiming to you the testimony of God with lofty speech or wisdom, for I decided to know nothing among you except Jesus Christ and him crucified." Now watch this. "And I was with you in weakness and in fear and much trembling. And my speech and my message were not in plausible words of wisdom, but in demonstration of the Spirit and of power, so that your faith might not rest in the wisdom of men, but in the power of God." Now you go back to where Paul went to Corinth the first time, and this was after again some of his defeats. He just had like a run of just a hard time before he was finally able to get to Corinth. And by that time, I mean, if you read about everything he went through leading up to Corinth, and it's like, you read about what he says about being trembling and being fearful, and it's like, I mean, it's hard to be chased out. It's hard to be just abandoned and turned away by an entire community of people. It's hard to be thrown into prison for stuff that you didn't do. And even though God got him out of all those situations, it still had it still left an impression up there. And so, so when Paul gets to Corinth, he's like, man, I was tired. I was trembling. I was fearful. And it's like, I could not rely on my speech. I had to rely on the power and the words of God. And that's the lesson for all of us. There are going to be times, and it's going to happen again. It's going to happen again because the devil knows that it works on you. But there's going to be times in which you're going to have those feelings of inadequacy. You're going to have those feelings of anxiety. You're going to have those feelings of, I shouldn't be doing this. Someone more qualified should be doing it instead. And it's like, okay, don't rely on your power. You're not supposed to be relying on your power anyway.
No.
You rely on God's power.
That's right.
Because he's the one who's called you. He's the one who's guiding your steps and giving you these opportunities, which is what they are. They're opportunities.
Yeah.
Opportunities for growth, opportunities for development. And, it's just a step on the path. But it's up to you to show up or not.
I feel that, and actually I had a friend in jiu-jitsu who was like, he doesn't go to our congregation, but, he's a baptized believer.
Right.
And so everything he does is like based off scripture, or everything he's trying to tell me, all the advice he's telling me. And he had sent me a video right now, and that exact idea came up. It's not about what I can do.
Right.
It's not about my power, because that's not why we were called, so to speak. It's just, I'll show you the video when we're done. But it's about being able to glorify God and what He can do, like showing people what He can do, not what I can do by myself.
Right.
I mean, if I thought I could do it by myself, like, I wouldn't, feel like I needed God, kind of, which, like, but I think I see that's like that hubris, and pride is the fall of man. Like, I see that when people think they can do it all themselves, that's when things go bad. And not only, like, maybe they're successful a couple times, but then, like, the one bad day happens, and then their whole kingdom comes crumbling down.
Right.
And it's just like, well, where was that pride? Where's that pride now? You can't be humble. You can't, we're told to be humble, and then so we can be exalted. Like you said, humility isn't always like backing down. It's just knowing who you are, right? And I feel like the prideful man doesn't know who he is. That's why he has to prove himself so much.
Well, yeah, the pride. I do. Arnold does jiu-jitsu. I do Krav Maga,
and we fight on the weekends. I'm just kidding.
We used to. But
we need to pick that back up.
That was wrestling,
yeah.
But Krav Maga is Israeli self-defense, so it's legit just hardcore self-defense for when everything hits the fan, right? And so one of the things we talk about in Krav Maga a lot is, don't get into prideful conflicts.
Yeah.
Don't go start fighting for pride. Someone tries to call you out in the street in order to throw down. Let them bluster and brag. I mean, it's in the end, what are they hurting? They're hurting nobody. But the thing is, it's like prideful man will want to go out there and fight. But the thing about prideful man is that sooner or later they're going to come up against somebody bigger and better than they, and they're going to wind up in all sorts of trouble.
Yeah.
It's like, for example, I don't know, have I told you the story of the two UFC fights that got beaten? The UFC fighters that got beaten
in the parking lot. The dude had a bat.
Yeah,
and they tried blocking it with their arm.
No, it's not. Yeah. Basically, that's what it was. Here's the situation, friends. It was like I said on the website. My master trainer put this on the Facebook page, and it was two legit UFC fighters, like highly trained UFC fighters, in which man is easily impressed. He's like, oh, these guys are awesome in the ring, and they can do X, Y, and Z. They know jiu-jitsu, they know wrestling, they know karate, they know boxing, and da. But here's the thing about competition. Competition, especially stuff like MMA, it takes place in a ring.
Yeah.
And in MMA, it's surrounded by a cage. In other words, nobody else is getting involved. 2, there's rules. There are things you can do, and there's things you can't do. 3, there's a referee. So that, if you go down and you get unconscious, the referee can stop the fight for you.
Yeah.
Or if you're tapping out, the referee sees it and will physically pull your opponent off you.
Yeah.
So, and so these are also the tenets of Krav Maga: no ring, no referee, no rules. And so there was 2 UFC guys at a gas station, and they're picking up some snacks and whatnot. And there's a couple of other guys that were in there with their girlfriends. And the UFC guys try to become the big stereotypical high school jock, star quarterback type guys, and start moving in on these other guys' girlfriends, right? And so they start, so again, there's no audio, but you kind of see, the body language, the posturing starting to happen, and then the shoving, and then the let's go outside stuff, and so they go outside. And so while they're outside, so they start acting like they're going to throw, one of the regular guys starts acting like he's going to throw against the 2 MMA guys. Meanwhile, the guy's friend has gone behind them, and he's found a piece of pipe. And so while the 2 MMAs are ready to square up and throw down with what they're used to, which is fighting in a ring surrounded by fencing with a referee with rules, they're not paying attention to what's behind them. Neither one of them. There's 2 of them.
Yeah.
Nobody's watching anybody's back. And the other guy lays into him with the pipe. Boom! And sends one to a coma, and the other one's they're both got messed up bad.
Yeah.
Because these guys might have been trained MMA and had all these fighting disciplines. They didn't know how to fight in the street.
Yeah.
And so so it's just the idea of you're not ready. You can bluster and brag, you can be very prideful, but that fall can come fast and that fall can come hard.
Yeah.
Because you're not ready for the pure spiritual battle. Or any battle.
Yeah.
Really, this was a physical competition, but it can happen to us in the spiritual realm too.
Yeah.
We think, oh, I'm on top of it today. Satan's not going to bring me down. And then boom. out of nowhere.
You're having an anxiety attack before your Bible study.
Yeah, I mean, and that's how it happens.
Yeah.
I mean, that's how. There's no cheap shot he won't pull.
Yeah.
And he takes no days off, and he's trying to get you to stop.
Yeah.
But the question is he going to succeed? And he can't force you to stop.
Yeah.
That in the end, that is on you.
Right.
That's on me. It's on all of us. And
yeah, I mean, I feel that I understand that I'm training for fighting on the spiritual streets, so to speak.
Right. So how do we do it? So what do we do?
Well, the way I see it, like staying in Scripture regularly, being with the people of the church regularly too, and praying regularly, meditating regularly.
Yes, Paul would tell but I think it's the Philippians. I try to do these things, so you don't hear like Bible flipping through all the, but
right.
Kind of keep it to the conversation. But I believe it was Paul that told the Philippians, is like, look, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything, through prayer.
Through prayer. Yeah, you know who said that? My jiu-jitsu friend.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he was like through petition and prayer. Yeah. He quoted it off the top of his head too.
Present your petitions to God.
Exactly. That's
the point. It's like some people like to say is like, do you think about it as much as you pray about it?
Right.
Do you fret about it as much as you pray about it? And if the answer is no, then you got to flip that dynamic.
Yeah.
Because it's very easy to just say the woe is me stuff, but if you're not actually taking it to, God should already know. God does know. First of all, Jesus told us that in Matthew's Sermon on the Mount. God knows what we need, but the question is, are we going to ask? Because in the same Sermon on the Mount, Jesus will say, "Ask, seek, knock."
Yeah.
We got to be willing to take our petitions to God.
Yeah.
And if we are being swamped down by anxieties and fear and all this other stuff, then we need to be willing to take it. But do we care enough about it to physically take it to God and lay it at God's feet for God to handle?
Right.
Because, think of it from this way. I mean, if we just kind of hide in a corner and just kind of put it there around us and we're just bogged down by it, but we're not willing to take it and present it to God, then what does that really show God?
Yeah, that we don't have the faith like that, that He can do it if we just, if we believe and obviously do the work that we need to do.
Right.
Yeah, like that's how I feel, because sometimes, especially like before when I was walking new, we talked about, God, He'll won't answer prayers because He knows what's in your heart, or He'll answer it in a different way than what you wanted, right? Because He knows what's in your heart, and it has to yeah, it's, I don't want to say it's tough not having personal wants out of your prayer, right? You're praying because you want something to happen. You're praying because you want your life to change, but why do you want your life to change? That's the biggest deal. Do you want your life to change just because it's gonna make me happy? Because then I get what I want, or because it really, really does further the kingdom, kind of deal. So yeah, I think that's a line I think I walk, or maybe most of us do.
Right.
But
I mean, yeah. I mean, that's the thing is we got to be willing to present. It's like, would we expect to lift weights and expect someone else to get stronger?
Oh no.
I mean, of course not. If we want to take part in this relationship with God, then we got to take part with this relationship with God. And one of the joys of being in a relationship with somebody else is that you're able to ask them for help. You're able to ask them to help you carry these burdens. And hello, we're in this relationship with God. We have the ability to ask that of God too. It's like, God, take this from me.
Yeah.
God, help me.
Yeah.
And that's part of the refiner's fire. We're on Sundays right now. We're doing the study on Malachi. This last Sunday, we talked about this idea of the refiner's fire. It's like there's a difference between gold ore and a pretty gold bar that you have at Fort Knox, and that is the difference is refining. And so you got to be willing to go through that burning process, which these days they do it with acids and other things. There's a whole process to it, but back in the ancient world, it was done with heat. Just like fire. Getting a big old fire and melting things down and getting the impurities out of it and recasting it with just the pure gold. And fire's hot. Being melted is not a pleasant experience. And being close to that fire probably wasn't the best for a lot of people who are involved in that. But that's what the refiner's fire is. And so God refines us, and so we got to go through this stuff. And so part of the refiner's fire is learning that we can physically ask God to take our tribulations, our anxieties, our depressions, our darknesses, all these negative things away from us. We can ask God to do that. And then the question is, do we trust God to work His will? Not necessarily just wave a magic wand and send it all away, but to work His will.
And to trust in His will.
To trust in His will. Jesus prayed for.
That's what I was going to talk about. The Garden of Gethsemane. Oh, that's what I was.
Yes, go.
Yeah, because he knew what he had to do, and at the end of the day, like, he kind of didn't want to do it. Talking about Moses, feeling like Moses, he didn't want to do it. He said, "If it's your will, take this cup from me. But if it is, then let it be."
Yeah.
That's a tough thing to accept. I couldn't do it.
You talked about Moses and Aaron earlier. Again, God's will was for Moses to go and do this.
Yeah.
And Moses was like, if I get it 5 times, the reasons why he can't.
Yeah.
And then so it was finally God who said, okay, look, what about Aaron? I'll send Aaron with you, and I'll speak to you, and you speak to Aaron, and Aaron will tell you what to say. Right. God didn't want to speak to Aaron directly. He wanted to speak to Moses directly.
Right.
Now he just needed Moses to get the backbone, to get the spine, to be able to speak to Pharaoh. Mm-hmm. He wasn't ready at the beginning for these reasons that we talked about, because he already been burned. At the end of the day, it was because he tried when he was 40 and he was rejected. So he carried that for 40 years until he was 80, still had the feeling that he couldn't do it. Let that sink in for a little bit. And so finally, God says, take Aaron with you. I speak to you, you speak to Aaron, now go.
Yeah.
And so they went, right? And this is a long story short situation. You can read about it in Exodus. But the thing about it is like, at the beginning of the 10 plagues, God spoke to Moses, Moses spoke to Aaron, Aaron spoke to Pharaoh. But by the end of the 10 plagues,
Moses is speaking to Pharaoh.
Moses is speaking to Pharaoh.
Yeah.
What happened?
He got his confidence.
And it didn't happen overnight.
Right.
It went through the process of the experience of walking with the Lord, seeing what was going on, and obeying God's will. And through that process, Moses was able to find confidence.
And so should we.
And so should we. So again, prayer, like we talked about Bible study, we got to communicate with the Father if we expect the Father to be in our lives. It's done through prayer and also communication. Bible reading. It's like, I want God. I want to hear God's voice. Read the Bible.
Right.
I want to hear it out loud. Read the Bible out loud. That's literally the easiest way to hear the voice of God is just sit down and just read the Bible.
Right.
And read the Bible out loud. Pray to God, read the Bible, and also be with God's people. Do not. This has been one of the hard things about coming out of COVID, is that some people have really fallen in love with the idea of distance worshiping, and the most important thing that a church can do cannot be done online, because it's about the relationship. It's about the interaction with people. And maybe you've been associated with the church for many years, but you still don't feel that close to people. Okay, now it's time to look in the mirror. Whose fault is it? Because that's one of the benefits of being a Christian, is being able not just to associate with God, but also to associate with God's people.
Yeah.
And so, again, that the more people we have in our corner, the more experienced Christians that we are able to walk with, as we're all seek to following after God, it can help keep this negative stuff away. So again, but remember, it's a process. Remember what it is. It's a temptation. It's a temptation from the devil, and it's a temptation to get us to stop. To combat this, remember what it is, cling to the Father that can overcome it, and cling to the one who wants to give us an abundant life.
Well, thank God, and I thank God for people like you, Jeff, and everyone else at our congregation, and for His word. And most of all, He gave me the life, and He He is watching over me, and I know that. And if anything, this conversation did help me feel better from the beginning.
Look at that. He's smiling, ladies and gentlemen. He was not smiling when he came in here.
I was like this, real man. You can't see my face.
I'm about to say, they can't see
you. Can't see my face, but it's real man.
You know, you do radio more than I do, and I think, it's like you forget more than I do.
Yeah, but it's fun making faces knowing that they can't see.
Well, you did, man. You sat down in your chair and you deadlocked, stared me down. It's like, I don't want to be here.
Yeah, but that's definitely what I had wanted to talk about today.
Well, that's awesome, man. I mean, again, it's real, and it's something that does need to be talked about.
Yeah, it's not just me.
No, absolutely not. It is not just you.
Yeah.
And anybody who's listening out there, it's not just you either.
Yeah.
So we pray that you're able to find some people that you can trust, that you can talk to, that can help you through these situations. That you pray, that you read your Bibles, that you get to know some good positive Christian influences, and that may we all seek to help carry each other's burdens, which is what we're supposed to be doing, and we continue to strive after the Lord together. So as we wrap up today,
and speaking of reaching out to people, you can reach out to Jeff and me on Facebook.
Yes, look up Arnold Martinez. You can look up Jeff Luplace, LUP, if that can be any more complicated. I don't know how it can be. On Facebook. Also, you can find the newer episodes of this podcast, Spiritual Defense on SoundCloud. You can find older episodes as well as sermons that we do and things like this at the North Mission Church of Christ YouTube page. You can find the Spiritual Defense page on Facebook. And also, friends, if you are in the Rio Grande Valley, the North Mission Church of Christ is located on Palmhurst, Texas, which is North Mission, hence the name. It's on Buddy Owens in between Stewart Road and Bryan Road. It's the church building that has the walking trail attached to it. We meet on Sundays at 9:30 for Bible class and 10:30 for worship. We're out there on Wednesday nights at 7 o'clock. So if you're in the area, come join us. We'd love to have you. We'd love to get to know you. Is there anything else that I need to throw out there?
No.